What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe. Nick Underhill, what's up, man? How we doing today?
Doing good. What do you guys want to talk about? Pete Werner getting a run stop? What are we doing today?
I want to ask you what goes on in a players' meeting when you're 2-6 and you've lost 6 in a row.
Yeah. I don't know that everybody really listened to that quote the way I did.
Okay, yeah, give it to us then.
Because it kind of seemed like Dennis Allen got it, like, are you happy about it and everything? And to me, it kind of sounded like we need to start doing some of this stuff ourselves because it's not getting done. And that's how it sounded to me.
Yeah,
but to everybody else, it sounded like player accountability. I don't think it was about player accountability. I think it was about this has to get fixed and it's not getting fixed, so now we're going to do it.
Yeah, basically saying like, look, you're saying like the players saying to each other like, look, leadership's not setting the tone. We have to be like, we have to start we have to do this ourselves and execute on it and follow through.
That was my interpretation, even though, Alvin specifically said it wasn't about them. But to me, it sounded, the way I heard it, it sounded like, hey, like this stuff isn't happening. We've been waiting 3 years for it and it's not happening. And now we got to sit down and talk about it and really not dance around the issue and actually, find a way to fix the stuff because, quote, sick of being losers, So I think it was, to me, it was pretty clear, but yeah, what goes on in there? I mean, I think that's if they have that meeting, they're going to sit around and figure out, what isn't working and figure out how can they do it themselves, because the other option is just to quit and nobody ever actually does that. So, I think they want to find a way to succeed, and that's tough. I mean, this is the second year in a row they've had to have one of these meetings. Usually when you get to, the episode 7 of the series about a football team that's, failing and the players have to get together, that's usually, you get the third act where somebody else comes in. I mean, it's not a good place to be when players are talking about having to do this stuff.
Yeah. No, it's not. And T-Bob was asking me if I remembered having one. I can't really remember having one of these in my career. Like I said, the last kind of resort thing that you want to do. We know kind of what the issues are for the most part, but I want to ask you, you cover this team, I mean, as well as anybody. What's the most surprising thing to you? Maybe something that you thought was going to be taken care of, because we know the deficiencies where they were in the preseason, and a lot of that is still there. But what's the most surprising thing to you, Nick, that you thought was actually taken care of, but right now it's just not hitting for the Saints?
It has to be the defense overall. I mean, they played a little bit better in this game, but, to be just real to the process, like the Chargers basically have like practice squad receivers. I mean, having a great game against them is one thing, but it doesn't necessarily carry over, all the way. So that being bad, it has been kind of shocking to me. I thought they played better this week. So there was a little bit more effort, but that was a surprise to me overall, just seeing the defense struggle the way they have. We knew the defensive line wasn't going to be great, but it seems worse. It's a little weird to me that you just kind of never really see him try to like feature anyone on that side of the ball. Like, there's not a lot of like, there's playmaking that happens, but it's never like, I don't think Tyron is used as dynamically as we've seen him in the past. I feel like Alontae Taylor could be used more dynamically. Like, he has the most disruptive plays in the NFL right now. And there's, some liabilities with his game. Like, the tackling isn't always perfect, but I feel like there's a lot more boom to get with him. I mean, it's just some stuff like that. Last year, kind of the same thing. I thought the pass rush was a big issue for them overall. And then the last 4 or 5 games of the season, they started blitzing more and kind of going back to what they were doing at the beginning of DA's tenure, and it shifted. So I thought that was going to be solved. And then you come back and it kind of looks the same again. And there's still some issues. But like, the most surprising thing to me outside of, any of this, just like in general, what's the most surprising thing? When you go in these locker rooms, last year it was like tears in the eyes, frustration, and this year it's different. Like, it's just not, it's not the same. It's not the same thing. It's they're pissed about losing, they're sick of losing, but it isn't this like raw emotion. I almost see a team that's kind of gotten like used to this, like right now. And I don't know that means anything. I think it's just more of a general commentary of the general track. Like they're desperately trying to find a way out. I just think the way it's registering inside of them is just, it's less emotional. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. I don't know if it means anything as far as like their ability to get out of it, but it's just like surprising to me, just the juxtaposition of being around the really successful franchise for a long time and then kind of getting into a place where like it's not a shock to lose a game anymore. And I don't think that's a good thing.
I mean, it's all like the definition of and not even the definition of insanity stuff, but like, of course, I mean, they're used to, it's been the same kind of deal for 3 years, like you said, Nick, and you keep trying, like, you can only keep grinding in that same vein and keep getting the same results before you give up. That's where, like, and I know the injuries probably ultimately are the main factor here, but I keep going back to those AK quotes after the Atlanta game where he's talking about how, look, man, we've consistently lost these close games. Like, I don't care about blowing people out. We can, and it seems like that is just something that it was almost like a breaking point of sorts, where it's like we've been trying for 3 years to figure this out. We can't. Then more injuries pile up. Then you got like rookie quarterbacks in, and like, what are you gonna do? I mean, you're bringing a knife to a gunfight at this point. Are you at all excited to get to be one of the teams that gets to like think about like Shadur Sanders and stuff? Like look forward, like, oh my God, like look, dude.
Well,
anytime you see a good college quarterback now, if you're a Saints fan, you can be like, hey, we might be in the play market for that.
Well, the problem is, and I don't mean to sound like one of the people on Twitter that's like the most negative person in the world, because there's enough of that out there, but I think they're going to end up winning enough games to get on the wrong side of that equation. I think that's where this ultimately ends up. I mean, you probably
how are they going to win games?
There's probably 3 gimmies on there.
Carolina.
I mean, I think they're going to beat Carolina.
Yeah.
I think they beat the Giants. Giants do have a good defensive line, though, so like you'll see who's healthy there. But I think they beat the Giants. I think they beat the Raiders. I mean, so there's probably 3 of them. So
oh my God,
that probably takes you outside of that. Just even if you just get those 3, that probably takes you outside of that top range. And they'll probably pick up another one or 2 somewhere. Like as bad as the game was Sunday, like I do think with like a starting caliber NFL quarterback, you might find a way to be able to win that game. It was 9-5 or whatever it was at halftime. Like that's a winnable game with a real quarterback. So like there's a couple they're probably going to get somewhere. I don't think it's turning around though fully, but I think, look, if you're asking me like my actual, not what I think should happen, what I think will happen, I think they win enough games to not get a top quarterback in the draft. And they'll probably find a way to win enough games to make this an actual conversation for the front office about, do we make a change or do we keep it going? I don't think
there ain't. Okay, I don't want to curse.
Look, I agree. I agree with you. My feeling, my personal
dude.
My personal feeling is the same as yours. I'm just telling you, being around them, I think the last thing they want to do is make a change. I don't think that anybody wants to make a change. I think they want to. Huh?
Are they dumb?
You have to hit
How
reset.
in the world? The last thing you want to do is make a change? Are you an idiot? Not you, Nick.
All I can do, love you.
All I can do is listen to what they say and how they operate. And I'm telling you, like, I think they want a reason to keep going again next year. I think they want to find the reason. The question is, will they find it? And that's just my personal feeling.
No, I believe you. You got your ear to the ground more than anybody.
I want to be at a press conference and ask Mickey, hey, Mickey, what would you tell fans? Should they look beyond these? He'd be like, yeah, these nuts, Mickey. Shut up. We're not looking beyond the results anymore, okay?
Oh, man.
Oh, my God.
I think they really want them to find a way to be 500 or better down the stretch. And if they are, I think there's a chance. I'm telling, like, people ask me, like, I'm just being around. Like, I think they believe they're like the Pittsburgh Steelers, where it's just like you have one coach for 16 years and you figure it out around them. But the problem with that is Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season, right? I mean, that's where you get into the issue with the comparison. But I sit back and brace for it. I mean, that's really what I think they want to have happen. I don't think they want. If they wanted to make a change, they already would have made it. I mean, you've lost 6 in a row. Like you would make a change.
There ain't no freaking way. Do you remember those old, very problematic videos from back in the day, bum fights? Bumfights.com? Because basically the 3 games that you just described, I should be able to order by calling 1-800-BUM-FIGHTS and get them on a DVD and throw them on when I'm drunk and showing my friends in the dorm, look at this crazy stuff. Isn't this pathetic? This is wild. Look how nasty and degenerate and awful this is. Are you kidding me? Watching the Saints play the Panthers, the Raiders, and the Giants? You should have to pay people to watch that. And much less to give credence to those wins as if they're actually somehow have value. That's the worst logic I've ever heard.
It's just that to me, just being around them for as long as we have. I mean, I just feel like they always try to have they like their setup. They like the comfortable path. They fashion themselves on being patient. And I think that's just how they're looking at it. And I go back to the interview he did with Bobby, man. He just, the look beyond the results. Like he was telling you, let's find the reasons for it. I'm telling you, they're sitting around thinking, okay, this is going to turn around once everybody's healthy. The quarterback's almost there and it's going to be fine. I think that's what they think. And then they think they're going to add to it. Look, they just re-signed Alvin Kamara. I mean, that's the biggest tell of all that you aren't planning on doing a reset unless you have to. They aren't going to trade away any of their players.
But isn't running back also like kind of a
hold up now
low? It's like committing to a running back is not the same cost as committing to some of these other positions. So you keep a fan favorite, you keep a player who's good. Like I feel like you could re-sign Kamara and still have that as part of like a larger rebuild, no? Or like a complete restart.
You could, but when you're a team that's in complete cap hell and getting to the other side of it, clearing out, $15 million in salary and having a place to go with that money, that's kind of, instrumental to it instead of pushing more money down the line to where you have these dead money costs when he leaves. And, to me, it just kind of screams like going to keep trying to add to this, get healthy, add some better depth. And we think the team that was out there in the first 2 weeks is a real team. That's just my read on it. My personal thing.
So I hear about the first 2 weeks again. I'm going to throw a chair to the television.
I look at it and say, where is this going? Like for the longest time, I was like, don't do the it's to the point where I would start rebuilding it. I would start looking at it. I feel like you tried this path. It didn't work. I understand why you tried it. I didn't disagree with it at the time. Your coach quit on you. It felt like there was maybe something that wasn't too far off, but they haven't found it. And they haven't found the way to elevate above their circumstances. And at some point, you got to be able to win a game you aren't supposed to win. And I don't know that that's happened yet. So it feels like you're banging your head off the wall. And then you get back here next year and, okay, you get healthy, you have everybody back. And what's the ceiling again? It's right in the middle. So it just feels like,
who do you have back?
I don't know. It feels hopeless right now.
Who do you have back? A fully healthy roster is still not that good. It's brittle. It's okay. And it's older.
And that's the problem with the management. Yeah. I mean, the management of the cap is that's what happens. You get injuries and nothing can. So you have to clear the cap. Like the thing is, if they reset this, it's probably a 3-year process. And I think you just got to start doing it though. Like you get to the trade deadline. Marshawn Lattimore's a tradable asset. You aren't going to the playoffs this year. Like just move forward with the and Kool-Aid and figure it out with them. That's why you drafted the guy in the second round. I would try to trade him. I would get an asset back, but I don't think these are the things that we're going to see. And it's just, I think it just is where it is.
You don't have anything to fall back on, and that's what's crazy to me. Like there's nothing to fall back on. Like, well, hey, remember at least when he was here, he did this, and Nick, nobody tries to keep the window open this long in the NFL. It doesn't matter who you are. Like you are going to not be there if they feel like that window is closing. I know, like for me in my own situation, like Norv Turner was 13-3 in 2009, and then in 2010 I think we were 10-6, and then it was like 8-8. It's like, hey, if you don't go make the playoffs, you're done. 7-9 fired, right? And Norv was 56-40 in San Diego. Yep. That's just my example that I went through. It's like nobody, like if it's going the other way, even if you had like, they could lean back on them going to the AFC Championship game a couple years before that, having a 13-3 season. But they didn't care because it's like, hey, we got to move on. We don't have time to wait around. And the Saints are the only one that sit there and wait.
And to your point, Jake, I know, Nick, we've talked about this in the past, but like when you do go full rebuild, you can enter hell for a while, right? But that was in the context. Yeah, exactly, right? That was in the context of like, you're still 500. You're right on the edge. Like you're already in hell. And now you're saying we're just going to post up. So then what happens when you do go rebuild? You're just going to be in there even longer? Like, does this sound like DA kind of How do you think the front office interprets this quote that you tweeted out from the WWL interview? Quote, I think we have some good young players. I don't know that we have any great young players, or at least now that we're in that position. I think we have some young guys that are developing that we hope can continue to get better and improve. But, I mean, basically saying like, yeah, our draft picks suck.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that in public. I mean, that can be your thought. That could be your thought in the building. I think we all know the drafts haven't been great. I think there are some really good, I think Olave is a pretty good young player. I think Alante's one. You just drafted some first round picks. It's just not something I would say on the radio. But look, I mean, to your guys' like point about leaning back, like one of the hardest things about covering this team is I don't know that there's a comp to this situation anywhere else in the league. Yeah, it's just the setup is different. The whole thing is different. So I don't really know how to gauge it. I don't know, if the Spanos family gets pissed off, like anything's possible. Like I just don't know. There's just not a comp. Like it's just, it exists in this place where I don't know that there's anything you can look at and say this is how this normally happens.
Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the two guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.